Ready to go?
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, so excited for our guest today, Cassidy Timbrooks.
Cheers. Thank you for the coffee.
Thank you for, this is our first Sunday episode, so I feel like it's going to have chill vibes.
I hope so.
I feel that.
I got all ready for you on Friday.
All right. I messed up. I've been doing a lot of 2 p.m. interviews, and I surely looked through my text, and we had agreed on 12 p.m. And at 12:07, you were like, "Hey man, are you on the way?" And I was in the middle of court battles and this and that. I'm running around trying to put shoes on, yelling at my wife, "Get me the cameras!"
Well, it's one of those things where plans get canceled, and you're like, oh, thank God. You know, it's like, I'm glad to reschedule, but in the moment, you're like, okay, the relief of having, okay, so I don't have anything to do today.
Yeah, isn't that nice that the unveiling of open time that you can get?
These days, it is harder and harder to come by, so yes.
I mean, have you ever had someone like, sort of like, not ghost you, but like cancel like a date plans, and you're like, great, I get to eat Chinese food.
Yes, definitely. Especially as a woman, it's just infuriating when they wait a little too long and you're already kind of like,
well, yeah.
You've already started your makeup.
Well, I'm sorry, I got you in makeup. Although you were heading out.
I was headed to a photo shoot anyway, so I ended up making the day actually like more time.
Less worried about traffic.
Yes.
Okay, well, I gave you that gift. You're welcome.
But I'm glad that we're doing this now. Anyway, I'm glad that we were both available for a little Sunday powwow.
You know, I don't want to out where you live, but you live right near one of my favorite comedy venues. Do you know they do comedy right here?
Right here?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
It's one of the dingiest places in the whole world. And it's a place where comedians go to train to hone their act. We'll talk more about it. Right there, the blue? Right there. I'm not kidding. That spot, right next to that.
We'll
I don't want to call it out.
I keep almost saying it and stuff.
So in fact, I'll take it right here just so we don't drive by it. So I don't want to dox you in case you have any crazy stalkers. Now we met you as a Bachelor audience on Clayton Echard's season. Mm-hmm. Fantastic story. Very interesting stuff. You made it, and so much story considering you didn't go that far. How was your experience?
Yeah, in retrospect, it really did feel like I was a pretty integral part of the season, despite like I was only there for 2 episodes. I was like, in 1 episode pretty much.
You guys had some pretty steamy makeout sessions. We
did. That was my approach.
Go hard, fast.
Yeah, I thought, and I'm going to be, just to be honest with you, like, I was pretty aware of the fact that I was probably going to be outgunned by the other contestants in terms of, like, accolades. I don't have anything.
What do you mean accolades?
Like, for example, like, Eliza modeled in Germany. Like, if you get off the Next bus, remember, like, MTV Next, what your little, like, 3 facts are? It was, like, modeled in Germany, and Elizabeth, like, speaks 9 languages. And I knew,
like, I'm gonna give him a boner. I'm gonna give this guy a boner. That's my accolade.
Literally, I was like, so I think I can get him to make out with me a bunch, and then I'll at least make it to like episode 4.
When they do these makeout scenes, how long are you kissing for?
A normal amount of time from my memory.
5 minutes?
It didn't feel crazy. A few minutes, maybe.
And the cameras are on. Can you like hear them like creeping up to you? Are they scurrying around like we've got a moment?
They have wide shots usually.
That's very respectful.
I never felt lurked on by cameras. They were kind of like there, but it didn't bother me too much. And the producer's presence either. I don't know. I guess it's hard. I guess I've never really thought about that. It didn't feel weird to me making out on camera, but I'm sure that it probably does for some people.
Was it nerve-wracking just doing the limo exit?
Yeah.
And I know you can't share too much, but like, are you getting your makeup done, going over your lines, what you're going to do? I mean, cause it's real, but it's also, you have to be sort of like ready to perform.
Yeah. Like it's hard to explain the way that it's real, but it isn't. You're playing a character in a sense. At least I kind of felt like I was playing a Bachelor contestant. You pull up to the mansion, you can't help it. All of a sudden you just like are like, oh my gosh, I'm on The Bachelor, like, let's go. And, the at least for me, the like alpha personality took over, the like, fake it till you make it confidence took over. And I went right in on it, but I think that, I think from what I observed from a lot of the other girls, I think that, that sort of situation causes a lot of people to react in the opposite way, where they get kind of in their shell and nervous. And
And it's almost easier to compete not for Clayton but against you. So you take an initial. You're almost like the lead of the pack early on. So people are coming after you, not necessarily him.
You know, I've never thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. At least in that initial couple of episodes, it is kind of easier to just, rather than if you can't be in his top few, then like the easiest way to sail through is to be against the one person who's coming out.
We see every year.
Which happens every year.
Thomas was a big
Christina Mandrell.
Yeah, of course they get some attention for the targets on your pack.
Yeah.
Now, because in reality,
I will say, I do not think in my recent memory, like early season villains, I feel like they are never actually. You know what? I'm not even going to say that. I don't think any villains on the show are actually bad people for the most part. So I'm not even going to go there.
But early villains don't have the late season villains.
Most early villains are probably just villains because they have some element of like alpha in their personality.
Yeah, Shanae.
Yep, exactly.
Corinne, Olympios. These are people that are loud, outspoken. You're sort of playing into what the producers want, which is sound bites. Now, your season became interesting because it was revealed by another contestant that you had a friend with benefit.
Yeah.
You'll never get anybody on the internet who defended you more than this. I always say, I don't care if you've literally come from your friend with benefit's bedroom. If you are not in a relationship until that is agreed upon. You know, so what was that whole thing about getting outed? Because that was a very kind of debatable topic.
Well, first of all, I appreciate your support. I do remember it very clearly, and I needed it because I had never, the entire internet was talking about it. And I mean, on the one hand, it was kind of cool, I guess, to stir up some controversy. And I also thought that the conversation that it brought up was something that I was kind of proud to have, you know, started in the sense where I
spearheaded, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Inadvertently to have spearheaded of the conversation about
very aggressive.
Whether whether or not
you penetrated the conversation there
just
quickly.
6 inches
right into it.
Right in. Yeah, I couldn't believe what was happening. The tears when I got sent home were partially like disappointed. I mean, I was like bummed out, but they weren't because I was in love with Clayton. I was like crying because I was absolutely baffled at what was even happening.
Did you feel
I couldn't
shame?
believe it. No, I just couldn't believe it. I hadn't done anything. There's sound bites of me being like, I didn't do anything, because that was how I felt in the moment. And
when you explained this to I don't remember who it was, someone outed you. Was it like?
It was Sierra Jackson.
Sierra, who of course has become known as very messy. I don't want to talk any trash about it, but like
I think that Sierra deals with a lot of internalized misogyny. Like that's become pretty evident to me based on things I've heard her say. And I don't have any ill will towards her. Like she and I are cool. But I spoke to her. She did an interview recently where she said some nasty things about me again. And I spoke to her and I was like, girl, I'm going through a lot right now. And like, this is crazy. It's been a year. Can you stop talking about cows and milk? Like, and how, like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
the whole,
just lay off.
why take
Yeah, she's like, that's like, and that's what I mean. The fact that that's a line that she goes with means to me, I think she has some internalized misogyny. I don't know who mistreated her in her life and made her think that, you know, manipulated her in that way. And there's a lot of people who feel that way.
There are different ways to launch a relationship, but holding off on sex may work in some, but that also might be a confirmation bias. Like it might have worked because it just worked. You know, like relationships can start in different ways. I've started relationships that began with what might have been a fun one night stand, and all of a sudden it's just like if you meet someone in an environment that might lead to early sex versus another environment, I wouldn't hold that against the person.
No, honestly, I was just socialized very freely in that regard. Like I've always been very sexually like unashamed, and I've never really I've never even thought to consider anybody's sexual history or lack thereof as indicative of their character ever. It's never even occurred to me to feel that way.
You were socialized. I like the way you put that. Yeah. So was that a parental thing or like friend group? Like you grew up just not holding sex on a pedestal?
I think it had a lot to do with the content and the media that I liked when I was young. Like I was really into, like I already referenced MTV Next in the first few minutes of this, but I liked like raunchy reality TV, and you know, I I guess it was normalized to me pretty early on in a way that I thought was cool. I loved Jersey Shore. I've seen it through like multiple times. I love that era of media, and I think it really instilled in me in like early teens that like it's okay to be the kind of girl that, you know, thinks sex is funny, and you know, I never felt any pressure to be prim and proper in that way. I wasn't a part of the, you know, the more traditional stuff that kind of gets women involved with that sometimes. I wasn't raised in a religious family. I wasn't in like the pageant scene or anything like that.
Which is wild because you now come on to Bachelor, which does have an evangelical following. You have Maddie Pruitt, which is worth the wait, no sex till the, you know, final. And that might work for somebody, but you shouldn't shame people for whatever decisions they want to make. Whether it's, and people always misconstrue what I say there, where they go, well, you're shaming Maddie Pruitt. And I'm going, no, I'm shaming her because she's promoting that this is the healthy way.
I'll shame Maddie Pruitt because of the same reason. You know, it's like, I don't know. I think that, especially since I moved to Los Angeles, like that was kind of, I left a serious relationship to come here, and that was part of what I wanted when I got here was like, A, I was going to apply for The Bachelor as soon as I felt like I could. And B, like, I want to date around. I want to feel like I've, you know, dated every kind of guy that I have ever, you know, would ever have any curiosity about.
Not a bad approach.
Yeah, having a colorful dating and sex life has just always been like a life goal of mine. So I never thought much of it. And so when it was coming to, you know, fruition in that way in the mansion, I was like in tears because I'm like, what is even happening? But
so for those that didn't watch, you had spoken with Sierra about like, yeah, I had a guy back home, or I have a guy back home, and you didn't think that would be used against you, or did you not think you were on camera?
No, I just didn't. I didn't think that it would be used against me. I mean, also, like, full disclosure, any memory or, you know, experience that I give you from that era, I was drinking very heavily, so the decision making was, you know, not sober-minded at all, but I didn't think that it would get me into trouble because I knew that it wasn't, you know, I think that if someone is talking very openly about something, they're either, how do I want to say this?
Not trying to hide?
Yeah, I just wasn't trying to hide it. I didn't think it was a secret.
And you seem to have the personality type that does well. Like, do you have a lot of girlfriends? Are you the type that, you know, like, I mean, because in most cases, your girls would find you funny, but in this case, they're your competition, so they will, just like, to go back to Thomas, when he was asked on Katie's season, hey, yeah, would you be Bachelor? Yeah, I'd be Bachelor if I lost. Oh, and then they brought it, and they used it against him.
I would have said the same thing if I wouldn't have thought, it wouldn't have occurred to me to think that, oh, well, I need to say that I'm not, because I don't want them to think, like, you know, I wouldn't have thought about that in time. I would have been like, yeah, sure, I'd be the Bachelorette, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I would have done the same. I would have made the same mistakes, a social mistake, quote unquote. But
and then most people would. Like I would be the type that would say something to make someone laugh or win that moment of likability, and then that would be completely used against me. The next second, like I would not last too long.
That is definitely my personality type. I'm sure that's probably why they cast me, to be honest. Like, I will say anything to get a laugh out of somebody, and if they're responding well to what I'm saying, I'll amp it up, you know?
Yeah. Well,
that's
I don't think
how they got me in interviews. They paired me with the producers that were like, you're crushing it. You are doing so well. He loves you. And I was like, he does love me, doesn't he? Oh, I'm crushing it.
Yeah, that's what they do. And you know, it's just important, and it's hard for people to realize that it's like, it's just a sliver of truth. Well, they do like your psychological evaluations and stuff in the casting process. So like, I don't know this to be true, but I would assume that they like obviously want to clear that you're not, you know, insane, but also, or, you know, actually I think that they categorize people initially from like the psych evaluations and kind of figure out, they have all the information they need to figure out how to make you tick. You know? Yeah, well, also, what to make you, if you're gonna, sort of how you're gonna deal with adversity, but also, you know, you learn from mentalists and from magicians that they can spot who's more agreeable than someone else. So they can do tests to see if you're gonna follow along versus not follow along, and that's why a lot of pageant girls and a lot of football players make it, because they are all about doing what the coach says. And, you know, and then when you kind of go against that grain,
your brain. That is very analytical.
Listen, I didn't get to where I am because I don't overthink these things. No, because you go, why are there all football players and pageant queens? Well, because, someone like Clayton did well because he's a do your job kind of guy, and they got him to do his job.
The reason that's so genius is because the easy and obvious thing to assume is that it's because they're obviously good looking. Like, that is an accolade that, generally goes hand in hand with being attractive. But it's deeper than that. It goes a layer deeper.
Wow, look at this foliage.
I know. I was just having the same thought.
Isn't this beautiful? I got to make sure I'm not going to get run over here. We haven't had a major collision yet on the season, which is good. All right, so what was the recovery process like after you go from hot and heavy to, mischaracterized? Did you think that, oh shoot, this is going to be a major storyline?
It was really brutal. Let me try and be concise in my recollection of this. So when I got sent home, obviously I went from flying as high as I had ever been emotionally. I had a rose going into a rose ceremony. I didn't think that I was, going to make it. I thought that either he was going to like me and I was going to go really far, or I'd go home night one. I kind of didn't see myself being like a middle season, drama character.
Yeah.
So I had a rose going to the rose ceremony. I was set to travel the next day. I hadn't even packed my stuff in the mansion because you don't have to pack if you have a rose going in. Sent home out of nowhere. And when they sent me back to the hotel, I didn't have my phone yet. I was still in my gown and my full makeup. It was like 3 a.m. I was crying hysterically. The only phone number that I knew by heart was my mom, so I called my mom from the hotel phone, and I was like,
like you said, it's not just because you got rejected, it's because you almost like had this, your own, loyalty, and you were questioned with your morality. Every possible way that you can feel. I feel like I had, let everybody I knew down. I feel like I had, I blew an opportunity that would have been huge for my, my potential career. I felt like I had blown everything. And on top of that, I wasn't really aware until the very last minute that the girls in the house had decided they didn't like me. So it also, in the instant that I was there, it felt like people that I thought were my friends threw me under the bus. It wasn't quite that simple, but any apologies after?
Definitely, yeah, and I'm sure that happens with everyone else.
What's an apology like? Are people going, "Hey, man, sorry, we were kind of caught up in it too,"
A lot of the time it's like that. Yeah, it depends on how close the relationship was or wasn't. Yeah, and I think that initially too, everybody waits a couple months to see what the public's response to somebody is going to be before they decide to make their amends.
That's kind of shitty.
Which is kind of shitty, but
because every year you see
nobody in particular did that, but I think that's a thing that
you see Katie Thurston's season's funny because she was a long shot to be Bachelorette, but as soon as she gets it, everyone's like, oh yeah. And every year, I'm Charity's girl.
Oh
every year it's like, all right, sure. It's just it's like we're all in this high school, and then who can we stick to? That's the popular kid. With
a little bit of hindsight, I think most people that come out of the show realize that it was kind of a fever dream, and hey man, sorry about all that. We're cool, right? And I don't take. There's not a lot that I take that seriously, so I got no bad blood or anything. But
what's your first drink after? Are you just immediately and do you go back to the friend with benefit? Because I wouldn't.
No, I didn't know. So honestly, I probably if you had asked me before, I probably would have said that I would have. But I think I was so disappointed by the outcome of The Bachelor that even if I had wanted to, and I would have wanted to, he was a good-looking guy and we had good chemistry. I too closely associated him with the pain of that experience. I don't think I'd be able to put it aside too, but I did, this is all theoretical. I did not see him again. That did not happen again.
Friends with benefits are interesting because we say friend, and friend usually isn't what it is. It's usually somebody you have enough attraction to want to sleep with, but not enough that you want to continue a relationship with. But my wife, Tasha, I was talking to her yesterday when we were talking about going over this. She said, well, in her eyes, a friend with benefit is usually one person not wanting to commit, but the other person would. So which one do you fall into?
Well, I think that a friend with benefits situation setup is oftentimes similar to an open relationship setup, in which,
Like we're gonna go try to do better.
I think that they are like in that one person would probably like to make this a closed off relationship, but the other person isn't willing to, and and person A like is into them enough to kind of, they can put their feelings aside for some amount of time.
And maybe that's where men and women differ, because I mean, and again, it's all on a spectrum. We use generalizations. Like, there can be people that are just not in the headspace to commit, and they both just want to fuck. But then, yeah, there can be people that like lie to themselves.
I have always been looking for a partner, like almost all of my adult life, and since I quit drinking, and like right now, I work out every morning. I work my 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. You know, I go to my meetings most nights after work, and then like I don't have time to commit to a relationship right now.
You're dating you.
I'm dating Cassidy. I'm healing Cassidy. But it's funny because I remember when men, anytime in my life that someone has said to me like, "Oh, I'm just not really looking for commitment. I have a lot going on right now." I've been like, "Boo, you whore." But
which could be an excuse to fuck around.
And oftentimes is. But as somebody who is truly in that situation now, I'm like, okay, maybe they weren't all full of shit.
Well, if you were trying to buy a house, the best negotiation would be to not have to buy that house. To say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this deal. Well, and then they might go, well, we'll lower the price. You know, you have that negotiation power. So when you're desperate, the people like that are buying a home right now are those that, you know, if you're going through a divorce or a baby, and we're buying a home because we're having a baby.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's so cool.
But that's when you buy, when the market's not right, and you're like, oh, I got to do this anyway. And in a relationship, if you're being desperate, you'll settle for something that might not be, we're not settling for our home, but we probably are settling for a shitty interest rate. That's just a completely different parallel.
You could always move to Des Moines and your money would go a lot further, but you're not going to do that.
Or Des Moines Dave. But anyway, so the point is that, yeah, when you're not on the highest sort of stock that you can be, you're only going to attract the version of yourself that is like flawed.
Well, I think I made peace recently with like, you know, I think that a lot of women go through this where I'm 28. I'll be 29 next year.
You got a good year and a half left. And I'm kidding, by the way.
Okay, I was like, oh god.
Me and my wife are in our late 30s. We're just starting.
Yeah,
we're just starting.
And that's the goal. And I think that's one of the reasons I love LA is how normalized that setup is. But I think that right around 25 to 28, women start to feel really uncomfortable because, like, the societal expectations are suddenly like, oh my god, you know. Shit, I don't even have a boyfriend, you know? But I think once you kind of go through that manic phase where you are trying to make anything work, and you just kind of make peace with the fact that like, okay, I'm going to be someone who doesn't find my person until their 30s, and that's okay. And like, there's no reason to end up with the wrong person out of, you know, a matter of time. Your whole outlook kind of changes, I think, when you make peace with that.
But you hard launched a relationship.
I did.
And it seemed like it was something very exciting for you. In real non-reality TV life, everyone goes through breakups. Was it more challenging knowing there were more eyeballs on you post-Bachelor?
Yeah, it was. You know, it was cute. The time that we were together was, we started dating when I was pretty fresh off the show, like right after Paradise had started filming. And the Paradise that I didn't go to, by the way, just to be clear, I never did Paradise. But during the early part of our relationship, I would get recognized when we were together, like every time we went anywhere, and it just made me feel like, yeah, like, you know, cute. And he was always so psyched to be by my side and be like the guy with me, you know, and so the euphoria of that experience, and like posting, and anytime I would post him, I would get messages like, so glad to see you happy, you know, from strangers. That it was...
You feel like you won.
Yeah, I really felt like I won. I really did, especially after the disappointment of Paradise not working out. I put a lot on that relationship as like my prize, you know?
So the relationship began as soon as you knew you weren't going to be going to Paradise?
Yeah.
And Paradise, not to go on a tangent here, you don't always get much of a heads up. I mean, were you like bags packed? You had the bikinis ready to go?
Yes, I was waiting for my fly out date.
Did you feel like that was a sure bet? Like, what was the odds that you were going?
I thought I was certain that I was going. That's kind of one of my fatal flaws in life, though. This doesn't just apply to The Bachelor. Is like, when I think something is going to happen, I don't even consider the possibility that it won't. You know what I mean? So I was very caught off guard, but that's not necessarily a result of, you know, anything except my just certainty.
But did that force you to want to jump into a relationship, or was it just natural that you were
It was natural after that. I went on my first, he was a Hinge date. I went on my first date with him like in the weeks after, when I was like, okay, I guess I'll start dating again, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, and that made, you know, the disappointment of the relationship not working out pretty hard. And I was drinking a lot at that point, and I was just being messy on my story. And
were you a bartender before this?
Yeah.
Does that, I mean, that's gotta really enable a lot of drinking, right?
Yeah, I was in bars and restaurants for almost a decade, and it was pretty much the only lifestyle I ever knew. And yeah, so my whole late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, like everyone I hung out with was an alcoholic. Like we just would go to the bar every day, you know, and
you had that crew.
It didn't even strike me as odd until the pandemic. Like it really wasn't until the pandemic that I kind of looked around and realized not everybody drank every day. I just thought everybody did because everyone I knew in my day-to-day life did, you know.
What was your drink of choice?
Vodka soda, because I was trying to be skinny as well.
Yeah.
But my favorite cocktails were like, I loved an old fashioned. I loved my favorite cocktail is a mezcal drink called a Naked and Famous. Look it up if you're someone who can enjoy alcohol responsibly.
Wow.
Order a Naked and Famous. It's a great cocktail.
Do you think of these cocktails like old past lovers? Like,
well, I do, and actually I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I am very fortunate to be a sober person who, because of my experience, like I've done everything in restaurants. I've worked at dive bars where we serve shitty beer, and mixed drinks, to like high-end bars. I've made every classic cocktail in the book. I've tasted every classic cocktail in the book. Like, my boyfriend of a long time years ago was a sommelier, so I've tasted phenomenal wine. I've just had my alcohol. I've had it all. I've gotten to experience it all, and now it's in the past.
So you're sober?
Yes, I am.
I didn't want to talk about this if you didn't want to, but if you're comfortable talking.
I'm super comfortable talking
I like to ask about bottoms. There are rock bottoms, and then there are people that come to realizations. People might parachute to their bottom, and they might hit the bottom. What got you to the point saying, I cannot negotiate with alcohol?
I think that for me to consider, I think that I'm not going to say I had a traditional bottom, because to me, I didn't injure myself or anybody else physically. I didn't get a DUI. I didn't, there weren't any like legal reasons why I had to start going to the program or anything like that. But I definitely hit a spiritual bottom. The breakup that we referenced earlier hit me super hard earlier this year, and I was drinking just as much as I always had, which was every day, but it was different, I was drinking to escape. There are whole weekends I don't remember, and all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was just like, I'm gonna lose everything. I'm gonna lose the job I have now. I'm gonna lose the friends I have left. I felt like I lost everything when my ex broke up with me, but if I keep doing this, I'm truly gonna lose everything. And then what am I gonna do? And it was the fear the fear just struck my heart all at once of like, if this gets any worse, I actually don't know how I'm going to have any will to live.
Did you in hindsight, do you feel like the ex made the right decision to end the relationship? What kind of resistance did you have towards that?
I was very resistant towards it. We strung it out for a few months, but it's hard to. I don't think he made the right decision, because I don't think he made it for reasons that were noble, but that's neither here nor there. I think ultimately I do choose to just be one of those people that I don't think necessarily everything happens for a reason, but I think you can take the cards that you're dealt and find a way to make it work for you. And I personally am grateful to him now. I have the ability to say that, because I think I eventually would have had to quit drinking, but the pain that got me to finally pull the trigger on it, it had to happen to me that way.
Yeah. Now,
otherwise, Lord knows what would have happened.
Do you ever look into your attachment styles? Like, are you familiar with like anxious attachment or avoidant? Because I'm not sure on all of them, but I wonder, is there like a connection, do you think, between an alpha personality and someone who doesn't want to, say, quit on a relationship? Or like, did you feel like you could sort of strong arm your way through it?
I've always felt that way in all my relationships, in my family when I was young. I've always been the person who makes it my responsibility to make everything work out and be okay. And I, clearly I think very highly of my own my will be done, and I think in relationships I've always kind of had that mentality of like, if I want this and if I put all the energy that I can into it, it's going to go my way. How could it not?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I could save it. I thought I could fix it. I couldn't. I didn't.
And then, so how long after the breakup did you come to that realization? Like, all right.
It was when I was in Israel this summer. I had my last drink on July 15th. So.
In Israel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What were you doing there?
I had a tough night in Tel Aviv.
A tough night in Tel Aviv? That sounds like a Netflix movie.
Yeah. Literally, Tinder swindled my way. I was there for work. Yeah, my boss is a native Israeli, so obviously this is a tough time in at work right now. But before all of the atrocities, we were there over the summer, and I got to go to Jerusalem and the Dead Sea, and I had this kind of eat, pray, love experience, and I just had a tough night, made a fool of myself, and I was just like, I'm sick of this.
A fool of yourself in front of your boss, or because what? On
Instagram, in front of my boss, in front of I was on one. My ex texted me and he's like, can you stop talking about our breakup on Instagram story? And I was like, I can do whatever I want,
Well, you do look for that control. When you go through a breakup, you don't control the outcome. So, I can control slamming them, or I can control my truth. Which is can be healthy, but it can also be not if you're doing it wasted at the end of the night.
Yeah, exactly. And I really don't think there is I don't think there's a healthy way to talk about anything in the first couple of months. I think you need to sit with it for a while.
Sure.
And process how you actually feel so that it's not an emotional response,
Now, I would love you on Paradise, but I don't know if the producers are going to want an evolved Cassidy. I don't know if they're going to want although a sober person on Paradise would be fun to champion.
No, because you know what? Well,
let me ask you on the record. Would you do it?
No, I wouldn't do Paradise.
You swear you would never do Paradise?
I'm never doing Paradise. You want to know why? Because look at what happened this season.
Yes. We are hot off of I don't want to speculate on John Henry or Kat because that story's still developing. But Kylie announced that Avon cheated on her. I made a video this morning.
When I saw Avon's Instagram story,
he makes a response right away. Yeah, he admits to it.
No. If this is what we're competing for, if this is what it's all about, is I don't know, man, a few thousand followers and a guy who embarrasses you as soon as it no. And I think unfortunately that's a lot of.
It's not just Bachelor. I was looking at F-Boy Island. One of the leads only has 7,000 Instagram followers. I'm like, my mailman's got a bigger following. And so I was like, I don't know what's going on with reality TV, but
dude,
you used to be promised these big followings.
You did.
Your season was one of the first where it kind of started to peter post-pandemic.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I don't know why people don't talk about this more. It's so weird, but obviously, the seasons that I watched when I was, aspiring to be on the show someday were Peter Weber, obviously was I watched from Ben Higgins, Ari, Nick, that era. Those girls walked off that show with an influencer career, and almost no matter when they went home.
You could be a Raven.
Yeah. And if you're somebody who is in I was in the situation where I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but it would be really cool if I could buy myself a few years to figure that out with some Instagram money, and so that's always, I think that's always an incentive for people. It's worst case scenario, I'll get a few thousand followers and I can make, some money.
Yeah, it's a little gasoline on your career. If you know which direction you want your boat to go, here's a little gasoline. If you're rudderless, it's going to be quickly used up.
But it's crazy.
If you're a Jason Tartick or Zach Clark, who's got they've kind of got their sort of niche, it can work. I politely criticized you. I don't know if you saw this. Because I believe you said something along the lines of you'll never take money for influencing, but why wouldn't you? You could Was it? Is that like a bitterness?
I don't know. I think I got bitter. I think honestly, I was such an emotional roller coaster for a lot of the time that I was just like posting anything online that like I don't know if I stand by everything. I've never made money, obviously, on my Instagram, but I probably would. I think I was bitter that I couldn't, and I was also
I'd be bitter too.
Yeah, I think I was bitter that I couldn't. I think I was bitter that it didn't go the way I wanted.
Yeah, you're no more or less a character than people that now make and have made millions off of the show. You know, my good friend Courtney Robertson was pre-Instagram boom, so she didn't get paid for the nude photos that were leaked in the gossip rag. She didn't get any of that. So she was like before it, but in your case, you were part of the class that expected, and I'm sure you were sold by producers. Hey, do what we tell you and you'll be a star.
Mm-hmm. No, you definitely have no reason to think that it's not going to happen that way.
By the way, is that a walk of shame, or is that this great lady right here?
I don't think so. I think
she's having a rough day.
I think she's having a rough day.
Maybe the edible hit too hard.
She and I were wearing the same shoes.
You're like, she's a hot mess. We're dressed the same.
I love you, girl. It gets better, I promise.
I love a good because I've never done the Sunday morning driving with Dave, but this is the place. By the way, and you live in a very good neighborhood for singles. You live in the part of LA where there's a high density of single people.
And a high density of actors who are not the kind of guys you want to date.
That is true. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but about this whole of like being promised the world.
So basically, you know, I think that there used to be a strong incentive for going on the show because you obviously know that, like, you know, anything can happen, right? I could get engaged, or I could, you know, get vilified, or I could make it really far and somebody, you know, from my past comes out and says, like, she cheated on me when we were together and now your whole life is, you know, ruined for a short time. The only thing that makes it worth the risk is that the likelihood is high that you'll come out with a following and you can make some money off of that.
Yeah.
These days, when I feel bad, I don't mean to be cruel or critical, but talking about like what's going on with Kylie and Avon, if I was the one dealing with that humiliation for like what 30K, I don't even know, like there's not enough there to make any money on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would be asking myself why the fuck I did any of this.
Yeah. Yeah. The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
The juice is not worth the squeeze.
Some people can, you know, parlay it. You can. You know, some people parlay into something, but you're just
tough. It's so tough.
It's absolutely tough. I mean, you know, look at Clayton, your lead. I mean, he ended up with 250,000 followers when people were getting millions, and he struggled probably similar to how you have. Hey, maybe would you ever rendezvous with old Clayton Echard?
I would love to talk to Clayton again.
Really?
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Yeah,
I would
to
give it another shot.
Well, I don't know if he would ever talk to me because I was. You know, there was like that whole video that came out where I was like, go fuck yourself, Clayton. But I was drunk and it was a leaked video. I was venting to my close friend's story and somebody beefed me.
What happened there?
I'm a really messy bitch.
So
I just was getting messy.
You did a close friend story. Oh, what a violation. And one of your close friends?
Yeah, and when it came out, I had no idea what other things they might have screen recorded because like I go wild in my close friend story, and I literally, when that came out, I posted to my close friend story and I was like, I don't know which one of you sent that video, but like please if you have anything else that like is whatever you want, like please just, you know, I just didn't want.
Was that as violating as Sierra Jackson snitching on you?
Yeah.
That seems like if a close friend of mine, if someone in my
honestly,
how many people are in your close friend list?
I have a life that has been rife with betrayal. So like, it's pretty tough to feel really truly violated at this point. But you know, Sierra was just doing what Sierra had to do. You know, she was not standing out in terms of her connection at the time. So I get, you know, you got to stay alive however you can. Game, respect, game.
Respect.
I don't hate the player, but with this, obviously, this is more personal because everyone I'm one of those girls who like my close friend story is comprised of like my best friends in the world plus like people I've met once that I thought were cool.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like it's all like my inner circle. It's also just like people I think would think that something I say is funny, or you know that we had a laugh one time.
And then here's what you learn when you get some notoriety is that people will get bitter over maybe what might come ezy in that moment. So
I'm friends with Reality Steve now. So he told me about, like, he showed me messages that people from my past had sent him about me that he never posted. And, like, one of my old roommates that I thought we were totally cool had DM'd him and was like, Cassidy's a huge fan of the show. Like, she's only doing this for, like, you know, because she's a fan.
How sad.
And I was like, girl, we're friends. What the fuck? Also, like, that, you know what I mean? I'm like, that's not even, like, you know, tea about somebody. What, that they watch the most popular dating show on television? Like, okay, you know?
Reality Steve
so
is like...
there are, if you're thinking about going on the show, just know that's gonna happen. So,
you know, we talked about that with Golden Bachelor, how this lady, she goes by the name Carolyn, she snitched on Gary because of this Golden Boy edit that he was getting. And in the end, all she wanted, because she was anonymous, is to win within her little circle, to know she wasn't, you know, it was about her. Like, we're all the main character in our own story. Mm-hmm. But if you have someone that you were living with a few years ago, and now you're kind of like the cool girl on episode 2 of Clayton's season.
Yeah.
So, oh, she's not that way. We just have this desire to tear down someone else's sandcastle.
Well, and truthfully, I mean, all out myself, it was foolish of me to even go on national TV because, like, the roommate thing, that was like, girl, what? But, like, my long-term boyfriend that relationship ended so badly. I was unfaithful. Like, there was tea on me, you know what I mean? That had I, like, ended up with Clayton or anything.
Did it end because you were unfaithful, or was that
No, it was just one of those, like, early 20s relationships that, like, we lived together, neither of us knew how to get out, we were kind of stuck there, you know, and, like...
Now, I think of cheating as, it's binary in the sense that you know when you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But there's also spectrums to it, just like there is murder. There's first degree, second degree, third degree. And I was talking about this earlier, and it's not to make excuses for cheating, but, like, were Kylie and Avon, like, really head over heels, or were they 1 week after the show and they were starting to find, you know what I mean? Versus, like, where did you cheat on your wife when she, like, was it a Tom Sandoval? Yeah. So, like, what, was it something that you look back on as, like, with a lot of shame, or was it, like, learned lesson? It
was a learned lesson, honestly. Like, if I could sum it up as, I'm sure that most of us have had something similar, or, you know, someone that did. We were both just young, drunk, aggressive people who shouldn't, you know what I mean?
The guy you cheated with, or your ex?
I've only had 2, like, main boyfriends in my life. The guy that I dated after The Bachelor, and then the guy that I dated in my early 20s for several years. And it was him. We lived together when I was in Boston.
Why did you live together?
Because I moved to Boston to date, to, like, be with him.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of why it got so hot. It got so, you know, like, Mentos and Coke.
Mentos and Coke. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Were you the Coke or the Mentos?
I was the Mentos.
Okay, you were the one. You were the one disturbing.
I was having a lot of mental illness at the time.
No, but how do you respond to the saying, once a cheater, always a cheater?
I definitely don't agree. Oh my God, do I not agree? I think that it really depends on how somebody talks about their transgressions in retrospect. You know, I think that if anybody, I'm wary of anybody who blames their past relationships not working out on the partner.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yeah, 100%. I think definitely, like, make a mental note of that if somebody,
even if they did cheat on you.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
Always own up to what you could have done better, which could have been just, like, knowing to leave the relationship sooner.
100%.
Because they can still be in the wrong, but you can still do something better.
And ultimately, exactly. I just think that it means a lot more, I think, how you communicate. So when I talk about my past, like, to people I'm dating, in that, you know, that element of my past, that I'm like, I was young, I was addicted to alcohol, and I lived across the country from my family in an apartment. I was kind of trapped, and I was a liar. Whatever, I describe it as, like, I was going through all of this stuff and I acted badly, and I would never, ever, ever do it again. I've never cheated on anybody since. I never would.
You know, I was like super single in my 20s, so there was no, like, cheating. There was just dancing around. So, like, you can learn your lesson, and, like, you could have been in a scenario where you would have learned your lesson had you not cheated and just not been in a relationship. But, you know, we always put ourselves into situations. Like, I believe, like, as a soul, we put ourselves into situations to overcome them. So the idea that you were once this way and you'll always be that way just completely pisses on the idea of retribution and growth.
And just people just grow up. I mean, like...
But I will say this, for a current part, like, if I had some cheating scandal and then my wife knew about it, that's even more of a trust that's going to be in her head. So that's something that kind of, like, that's just part of it. It's unfortunately,
we all get to a point where everybody has a little bit of baggage, right? You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, some people, everyone is allowed to have their discerning things and you know, their red flags, deal breakers, whatever.
Do you think you could negotiate getting back on the bottle in moderation? Or do you think that this is, are you committed to the idea that like you're powerless?
I would love nothing more than to someday be able to have a health, I mean, but that's the catch-22, right? Is like, if you really feel that strongly, if you're like, oh, I would love to have a healthy relationship with drinking, it's like, why would you love that so much? You're like, well, because then I could drink, you know? I don't think that I'm somebody who can. And I think that it'll only ever make me a better friend, a better partner, a better parent someday, all the things I want to be.
You know, my relationship with sugar is similar, except sugar doesn't make you do the play victim to your own ego, or sugar doesn't make you, you know, blow a guy for coke after, you know what I mean? Like alcohol can make you do things that you just wouldn't want to do sober, and you lose control. And don't get me wrong, I lose control with sugar. It's just different, right? You don't, and there are 12-step programs for every type of addict, whether it be food, recovery.
You wouldn't believe, I know people in sex and love addiction meetings.
Oh, for sure. I went to a Codependence Anonymous, CODA.
I didn't even know that was one.
It's wild.
Well, that's a beautiful thing about LA. There's so many people here that, like, whatever your affliction, there's a community for it. I think that's really beautiful.
I remember seeing one for like uncircumcised men.
That's really sweet.
I went to this codependent meeting when I was
my
going
lip
through.
Just went, oh.
I was going through a breakup, and like I couldn't even get my story out. I felt like I was being strangled in my throat, like my throat chakra was just being kicked in by my, you know, my sadness. She took me in, and she just pulled me into her body and hugged me, and she goes, "You, sir, are codependent." And I was like, yeah. And I only went a few times, and I was able to sort of do a lot of work for me, like figuring out what my issue. I always went through the several times I had bad breakups were always when I was either unemployed, broke, or I had all these other issues with me.
That's when it hits harder. Same with my breakup. Like, if I had been cruising, if I had been in the position I'm in now in life, like sober, in great shape, you know, working, saving my money, and got dumped, I think it would be so much different. It hit me like 10,000 bricks because, I was broke. I was like so ashamed of my drinking. I was like down bad, you know.
That's why I look at it. I look at it like Shark Tank, right? You want to can I make a left here? Nope, never mind. You like looking at a relationship as in like, I'm about to have my initial public offering. I'm about to sell myself to the world. They can only buy me at the highest level I present them. How do I make my company the best it can be? Well, eating healthy, getting, pursuing authentic career paths, doing things that make you the best will invite someone else who's doing something that makes them the best.
Definitely.
And that's what the idea of like a power couple, it's just energy.
I think that that's a big part of what finally led me to AA and sobriety is like, dude, I threw my hands up. I give up. I tried to force my will on the world my entire life, and it failed and failed and failed, and finally culminated with the grandest failure of my life, which was The Bachelor not working out. And then when the breakup, then I finally was like, I give up. I clearly don't know what I'm doing.
So you can be dating yourself, but you still got to be, I mean, when we started the conversation on the topic of friends with benefits, so let's wrap it up here. And by the way, this is definitely one of my most interesting conversations. I think the audience is really gonna like to hear your story because you've moved with a lot of growth in a short amount of time, and time is subjective, and I think people can get these moments of enlightenment really fast when you are set into triggering positions like The Bachelor. So can you, like, you're sober now, but like you can still like go on dating apps, have a one-night stand, these types of things, but like have you set sort of, even though earlier we said you're okay with it, have you changed your belief on what's right for you?
Definitely. For now, I am, I have people, I'm gonna say people, there is someone that I trust, that I spend time with, that, is, I guess you would classify as a friends with benefits. I'm not in a place for commitment right now, but that's...
A fornication buddy, they might call.
He's all right. But, it's... Right now, I think that I'm taking at least a year to just focus on myself and my sobriety and my healing, and, all that. But because I really do have a feeling that when I get into a relationship next, I think it's going to be it. I think I have faith that the next one is going to be the right one. So I'm in no rush.
You got to find some guy who wants the milk and the cow. I don't even know how this saying works, but boy, you know, these evangelical sayings. You know, I had
You know what? No cow buyer of mine would be put off by a free sample of milk. Okay.
Yeah. Just
all right.
We're drinking oat milk.
And
here,
I would like my buyer to have sampled as many milks as he can get his hands on, and that way he knows mine is the best.
You know, my wife is producing a lot of milk in preparation for our baby, and I mean that's going to be a whole nother step in when I dabble.
I nanny for work right now, and I was up close and personal with a lot of breast milk early on.
A lot of breast milk. Breast milk is the more I've learned about pregnancy. Did you know that when the baby's saliva will tell like the breast what type of milk to make? Did you know that? So if you're lacking, you don't even believe me. If you're mansplaining breast milk to you, if you're deficient in something, your saliva will like communicate with the breast through the absorption of whatever to change the recipe up a little bit. That's like miracle.
To account for that lack of interesting.
That's why like early on the breast milk only produces a certain ingredients that are better for the baby early on, and it changes. I just thought the more I thought of that, I was like, yeah, I mean, men really are the weaker. I mean, we just like all we do is supply a little sperm and then you know try to go make some money and obviously you know I'm simplifying it, but it's impressive to end on a dairy conversation.
To end on a breast milk note.
It's just impressive what goes in. Well, you don't know until you're like,
go out of this world the same way we came into it.
That's right, sucking on boobs. So is that a 12-step thing to like try not to date while you're getting your bearings?
Yeah.
And I know it's a tough conversation because you're not supposed to promote it.
The perfect way to do AA would be to not date at all in the first year in the program, and there's an obvious reason for that, right? Like you're in a really delicate emotional state in early sobriety, and if anything, they also recommend no big changes in life, like no job changes, don't move. Obviously, that doesn't work for everybody.
But they're trying to limit your variables that might trigger you.
Precisely. I am not in a position with the person that I'm hanging out with where my emotions are invested enough that my sobriety is at risk, so I deem it safe and okay. But yeah, that does play a part. I'm not willing to enter into any committed relationship where my emotions are heavily invested.
Have you had moments though where you're really tempted, to go out and go to the bar? Or?
I have moments, I would say, where it's not that I miss drinking necessarily or miss, like being drunk. I miss being 23, I miss the way that it felt before you really knew, how life gets. And
well, if it makes
there's
you
a
feel
naivety
better.
that I remember so clearly, and I wish I could go back, but you can't unknow what you know.
I feel that way. It just stepping foot on a sticky floor, having a cold, shitty beer.
All of a sudden you're back,
I could, I like an expensive cocktail every once in a while, but I probably have, honestly, one drink a week. Yeah, I'll have like 3 drinks a month. Maybe they're all at the same time and that'll be it. But yeah, like I'll go for the cheapest kind of lager. There's something about because there is like a cultural vibe to it that's not exactly about what you're drinking, and that makes you wonder and explore what you're missing. And it's hard to relive the college years where you don't have to worry about student loan debt, health insurance.
It's an interesting psychology, because there's a reason I think that alcohol is so much a part of culture, and like the fact that like your college years are like such a societal, like everybody, it's such a common trope or common whatever experience. Like being young, if we could bottle it up, the feeling of being young and sell it, we could. We can't. The closest we can come though is alcohol.
Yeah.
And like, so yes, of course, I miss leaving work at 1 a.m. with my 10 colleagues and going and getting there for last call, and and just being naive to the horrors of the world, and being young and beautiful and bright.
Now you're in a new cult of CrossFit. So it's no surprise. I'm sure the pipeline from alcohol to CrossFit is pretty, and because gym culture
in LA, dude, there are a lot of people here who just, and not uncommon to just shift addictions. If you're a true addict and you just like need something.
But I mean, at least you're doing a good healthy thing.
It's good. I'm addicted to LaCroix. I drink like 10 a day. I have a few Celsius a day, which probably isn't good.
So funny. Oh, I'm a big energy. I mean, obviously between coffee and like I love
to be cracked out.
Diet Cokes. My audience knows. I'll swing through a 7-Eleven and get like the fresh fountain soda because I don't want to drink a can. I'm a loser. But it's like that's better than some alternatives. Like so people will be like, well, there's sweetener in it that causes. It's like shut up. I could be out there pounding beer, I
agree. I think that everything in moderation, and as long as you're not hurting anybody. I think you can have as many Diet Cokes as you want, because like you said earlier, Diet Coke doesn't make you mistreat people.
I'm not blowing a guy for a 12-pack.
Yeah, you're not
cherry diet.
Leaving your pregnant wife home wondering where you are, or you are, but you're just in the parking lot of 7-Eleven having a Diet Coke.
With that long straw that I don't even have to reach up, just connect it like a morphine drip. Well, look, thanks for doing the show. It was
my pleasure.
It was great to get to hear where you are at, and come back anytime.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry if it was a little disjointed, but I feel like we got some good stuff out there. So thanks so much.